Hey, I'm Nick DiMarco. This is my tech set project. I apologize for not having the books that I'm about to talk to in person. I'm in the middle of moving across country from Texas to West Virginia, so all of my sources are actually in boxes. So, without further ado, I'm going to do 10th grade science, health, and nutrition, and the focus is going to be the role of exercise on people's health. First book that I would talk about is going to be Spark by Dr. Ratley. This is all about how the brain affects exercise, or I'm sorry, how exercise affects the brain, right? So, talking about neuroplasticity and how new neurons are developed and how actually exercising can help focus attention and help us learn a little bit. Something that's really, really important, especially with like kids today being addicted to their phones and having ADD. The second book I would choose would be Outlive by Dr. Peter Attia. Great book. I've gifted this book to a lot of different people. It is pretty thick, but there's a couple really key chapters in there. This book's all about longevity. And so, not just like exercise for sport or vanity reasons, but like, hey, how are we looking at our health span and the quality of life as we get older and how that actually starts when we're young? And so, again, a really, really important book, I think, especially with the rise of like childhood obesity and all of these other things that are happening younger and younger to children. Let's get this information out in front of them so that they can make good decisions long into their life. The next one's Peak. This is all about the science of practice. And this is something that I think is really, really important because as it relates to sport or exercise and just being scared about getting into something, this is a big common thing that I hear is like, oh, I'd love to get into jujitsu like you are, Coach Nick, but I'm just kind of scared I would be really bad at it. And so this is a book that shows like, hey, practice is what makes it perfect, and we all start from somewhere, and the science behind this. Born to Run is going to be the next book, and this is the book where like I kind of tie in social media trends. This was a book that completely changed the running course of trajectory of running in America, right? This is where all of the five finger shoes came out and barefoot. This guy went to Africa, watched some tribes run, came back, and he's like, hey, they all run in barefoot and they're faster than all of us. Maybe our shoes are what's making us slow. And all of a sudden everybody threw away their cushion shoes and started running barefoot, and we saw an increase in injuries in all of the runners. Were there some good takeaways? Like, absolutely yes, right? But the large majority of the people took this as, I need to start running barefoot. And I think this would be a great project to, hey, we're going to read this, and then I want you all to go out on social media and find something that like has a nugget of truth in it, but it's being applied broadly in the wrong sense and the danger behind that. So again, really good book. I think that has a lot of parallels for today. The next one's going to be Champion's Mind. This is all about like mental toughness and strategies to overcome those barriers that come up. And it does it through a way of talking about athletics, which I think is a little bit more of like a gateway to get people interested in this, especially in the 10th grade year, rather than just saying, hey, we're going to learn about like psychology and mental toughness, right? Not that that's not bad, but I think that this is a better way to get kids interested in it. And so as kids are in 10th grade and life seems really, really hard and they're about to start thinking about college and everything like that, they're going to have a lot of these adversity type moments. I think that having a book that talks about how athletes are using their mind to overcome adversity is a good thing to put into their toolkit. As we move into our actual like research type papers here, the first one that I have here is Be Smart, Exercise Your Heart, Exercise Effects on Brain and Cognition. Again, a primary source for like those first couple books where we're talking about how exercise actually affects our brain and the movement patterns associated with them, like practice and all of that. And the second one is a primary source that relates back to like Peter Attia's book and like these other ones where we're talking about the quality of life. What I really like about these is that they're really hard, kind of upper grade level type of reading, but because they're just papers, they're relatively short compared to like a book. And so I think that it's going to be a little bit easier to digest in the sense that a student's going to look and say, oh, I don't have to read a book of 100 something pages. I've just got to look at this paper, which is like 10 pages. We also, between the two studies, get to start to introduce some more scientific type of vocabulary, like what's a systematic review, what's a meta-analysis, what's a random controlled trial, double-blind trial, and what are the different powers and the magnitude of effects, which ones have more reliability behind them, things like reliability versus validity. And so as a 10th grader, these are start to be some themes that we need to think about, especially when we're going back to sources to see if those sources back up our claims. And so again, two articles that I think do a really good job and can tie in some other lessons into them. For my multimedia, I chose this podcast by Dr. Andy Galpin. Andy was my mentor when I was getting my master's in exercise physiology. I worked in his lab. And what I really, really appreciate about Andy is that he takes really hard concepts and is able to explain them in very easy to understand terms. And so this is a very long podcast, but I think it's really, really interesting. And the reason I chose this one about the cardiovascular system compared to he has them on every single system, right? Andy's got his YouTube channel is amazing. You can get a master's level of education on physiology just on his YouTube, but with childhood obesity, diabetes, all of these heart-related issues arising, I think that this is like one of the most pertinent places to start thinking about our long-term health. I chose Andrew Huberman's podcast where he had Andy on to talk about how to optimize your training program for the fitness and longevity as the second source, because again, I think that he does a really good job of breaking this down into really easy to digest bits of information. And I think that when it comes to people trying to think about how to exercise, Andy really lays it out really well. How many days a week should I be running? How many days a week should I be lifting? Do I have to run? Do I have to lift? What kind of exercises should I be doing? All of those things are covered into this. And so again, a really good exercise, a really good podcast to show, different ways of thinking, and that there's more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to the exercise and fitness goals of people. The other reason I chose both of these gentlemen is that they are influencers. I mean, Andy works with UFC athletes. He works with the Angels in the MLB. Dr. Huberman, he's been on Joe Rogan a bunch of times. And so these should be names that students have probably heard about, especially if they're into this type of material. And it's going to show that not every influencer out there is all just about clickbait and that they're all bad. I think that sometimes I can come off as like I hate social media and like you should be off of it, but there's a lot of good that's out there as well. And here's two influencers that are doing their best to bring really, really good information to the masses. For the picture book, I chose this Science of Strength Training. I really like this because, as you can see here, this book has got really awesome detailed information on it. It shows the whole body and the different movement, the planes, the different muscles that are activated. They're all color coordinated. And they've got this for all these different exercises that the students will be hearing throughout the semester or the year, right? And so what's really cool about these authors too is that they don't just have strength training. They have a science of running one, they have a science of yoga. And so these could be tailored to the region that you're specifically teaching in. For example, if you live up in Oregon, I imagine that track is really, really popular up there, seeing how that's where Prefontaine and Nike and all of them started. And so you could get this same type of book that's called The Science of Running, and it shows how like mid-stance phase and like dorsiflexion and plantar flexion and all of that. Whereas like maybe in West Virginia, wrestling and football is really popular, strength training, cheerleading, all of that. And so this would be an appropriate book, right? So different books out there along the same line. There's a whole series of them that I think would be really, really interesting and good for kids to look at, especially since picture books are a little bit harder as the students get older, like in 10th grade. A bonus book I would throw out there would be this Tim Ferriss 4-Hour Body. It's a bonus one because I think I would only use it if I had a PDF copy that I could pull out certain sections. Tim Ferriss is an influencer that like loves science and then tries to hack the science to come up with some pseudoscience to fit the working man woman's like crazy work week, right? And sometimes he hits the mark and he's ahead of the time, and then other time he's completely way off. And so the only reason why this isn't like a full send let's do it is because there is like a chapter on, like, as you can see on the cover, incredible sex, and that's probably inappropriate, and I would lose the attention span of 10th graders talking about that sort of thing. And so if I could find a PDF where I could pull out, the fat loss or the strength training, those type of chapters, then I would use that, and it would be a really good exercise again to compare, contrast primary sources with pseudoscience and influencers and have a project on that. So those are my tech sets again for the 10th grader who's being taught science and the health and nutrition with the focus specifically on the role of exercise.